What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Word on the street says that Finland is the happiest place to live in the world right now, which would make sense given the information that I'm going to give you right now is probably going to want to make you pack your bags and start moving. US airstrikes over Syria happened over the last 24 hours. The banking turmoil is now going into the Eurozone with Deutsche Bank coming up and their shares dropping 14% over stress within the banking sector. We're also going to be diving into the relationship between China and the US and why the US is trying to prevent China from benefiting from a $52 billion funding in the semiconductor business. I don't even know where to begin. But more importantly, at the end, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin's price action. So if you are new to the channel, mad love and respect for passing through. To all my pattern watchers, mad love for checking in. Let's have a conversation. So we get the party started off with Deutsche Bank shares plunging at the fear of the cost it's going to take for them to cover themselves against a default, which is exactly where Silicon Valley Bank and, of course, Signature Bank and First Republic come into play. Well, whatever's happening in the US is usually going to trickle over into the Eurozone and, of course, in the UK. Now, we've got Credit Suisse that is effectively being brought out by UBS, which happens to be a competitor. Now, Deutsche Bank wants to install confidence in its investors. That's why it sold up its bonds to effectively raise cash to make them feel like they are safe and that we haven't got any problems with liquidity. Well, let's just check this out. You can see Deutsche Bank's share price has taken a nosedive for the week of nearly minus 27% and counting. Now, this stock was nearly $120 a share. So now it's at $9 a share. Wow, what a discount. Remember, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo all stepped in to try and help out First Republic. It's a monopoly. That's what's going on. So all the major banks are all stepping in and buying up all these small banks and taking on all those customers. It's when the big banks start to crumble. Now, we haven't had any major banks crumbling just yet. We hopefully are not going to have a repeat of Lehman Brothers, where they declared themselves bankrupt back in 2007, 2008. So this is what's going on in the world, ladies and gentlemen. Airstrikes in Syria due to an Iranian drone taking out an American contractor and injuring 5 US troops at the same time. The US retaliates. That's the problem. When you provoke, that's what happens. But what makes matters even more worse is the fact that Iran is one of the biggest producers of drones, and the US is trying to effectively get a treaty in place to prevent this from continuing. Iran is taking sides with Saudi Arabia, and of course, with the encouragement of Russia and China, and with all the tension that is happening, it doesn't look like it's not looking good, ladies and gentlemen. That's not FUD. I'm just telling you, look, put 2 and 2 together. It's not looking good right now. But don't lose any hope. The US just recently gave and awarded a contract to Raytheon Technologies to create over-the-horizon missiles. $234 million. So we know that the company, Raytheon Technologies, is going to be doing relatively well when it comes to their share price. Why? Because this is where they are. Right now, they are only slightly down for the week, but given with current circumstances, again, aerospace and defense stocks will always do well during these economic climates. Whether it's recessions, depressions, you name it, inflation, deflation, they will always perform well, like medical stocks, because they still need to keep the business moving. People will always feel like there is always going to be a threat with overseas. I mean, just look at this guy over here. Korea, look what he's done. Claims to have tested a nuclear-capable underwater drone. Like, what's going on? It's all becoming aerial right now, which makes sense as to why the US is investing this much money into this sort of technology. That means only companies like this are going to be winning. Now, this is the sad truth, and I will always say it, all right? They don't do this for free. They're doing it for a return. They are providing a service. They have the intelligence to create, provides aerospace and defense systems and services for commercial, military, and government customers. It doesn't say what governments, it just says governments. Now, you can speculate, but it does pay to actually pay attention to what these companies are getting involved in, and in essence, who is approaching them. I wouldn't be surprised if this company gets approached to do a drones contract, for example, and create something similar to this bad boy right here for another government. But that's another story. All I'm saying to you, as the savvy investor, follow the money. Money's going into weaponry creation. That's the sad truth. Designed to kill. That's the issue we've got. They're not bothered about it. They're only looking at their earnings per share. And it looks to be up going into the next year. $5.82. That's the sad story, ladies and gentlemen. So we know the relationship between China and Russia ain't always going to be a good one. 1 minute it's good, the next minute it's bad. It's like a love-hate relationship. Now, this is the situation that we've got. The US will always throw sanctions all over the place. They're already trying to put sanctions on Tehran in relation to Iran being the biggest producer of drones. Okay? They're also putting sanctions on Russia when it comes to oil. But more importantly, the latest one out is the US is seeking to prevent China from benefiting from a $52 billion chip fund. Now, this $52 billion is designed for companies to take some of this money and invest it and then start creating semiconductor products, okay? But Biden doesn't want that to happen. He wants to create the US as a home or a hub for them to create semiconductors for themselves. They don't want to have to rely on China. Now, China does hold the biggest market cap for the rare earth metals. And we spoke about that in the last video, talking about how your mobile phones, TV devices, and what have you contain these rare earth metals. And China already back in the day put a cap on the export of those metals. Now, Biden wants to prevent that from happening so that he can then effectively create his own semiconductor industry in the US. So if he prevents China from taking advantage of this $52 billion, what companies are going to benefit from it? Companies like Micron Technology. These are a US-based company that focuses on semiconductors or in that industry. They focus on making DRAMs, NANDs, and NOR, flash memory, image sensors used in computers, servers, and consumer electronics. You can see that they're doing really well today, trading at $60 a share, and they're nearly up 8% for the day. Now, if they do succeed in preventing any companies that are based in China, especially that work in the semiconductor industry, and they don't get access to this $52 billion, then you can bet companies like Micron Technology or more companies in this sector are going to see that benefit. So here we have Bitcoin's price action as promised, ladies and gentlemen. So today, Bitcoin has seen a little bit of a tumble, hasn't done very too well to hold above the daily open. But if you notice, they come back down and recovered the green vector candle region right there in the chart. How were you able to understand that could have been the case? Well, if you pay close attention to Bitcoin's price action around the daily open, you can see that there's this attempt to try and break higher, but with no follow through. Again, take the concept of the key 28,000 zone. Remember what we said about the 28 zone prior to the FOMC. It's where they were building shorts from. Look at the green vector candles. This is where Mr. Market Maker is building positions. So he builds his shorts at the highest point. Remember, you want to sell your investments from the highest point, not from the lowest point. So they marked price up and then they ripped it back down. All the traders that were long in this area got liquidated all the way down towards the 26,589 zone. But Mr. Market Maker encouraged traders to go short on this, and then he instantly brought it back up to recover all of the margins that were placed by retail traders in shorts and ate all their liquidation points, because when you go short, he goes long. So you could say that this is a DCA strategy, but it happens really fast. All right. DCA is you're just hoping that at some point Bitcoin will come back up after you've been progressively buying it as it's been dropping and dropping and dropping. Well, Mr. Market Maker does it at speed. Okay. Now here's another example. This is my Euro trade. Okay. Now, I've been waiting for Euro to drop down, and I got my signal, in essence, yesterday when Euro fell to get above this area right here at the 1.090 zone. Why? Well, this looks like there's a couple of structures that you guys might be familiar with. You might be familiar with the head and shoulders pattern that is created right here, okay? Well, a variation to that is the M formation. Now, the criteria for an M formation is the first leg has to be higher than the second leg. All right. Most of the time, if the second leg is lower than the first leg, then that could lead price to break down. And we got our signal in principle. We got it on this red vector candle breaking down, and there was no recovery. If you look closely, let me get rid of that. If you look closely, they didn't fully recover that red vector. Okay. Now, if you notice this blue line right here, what is it? It's a whole number, and that is the 10900 zone. So the same concept applies here as it does with crypto. Bitcoin was building the shorts above the key 28,000. Euro was building shorts. And how do we identify that? Notice the green vector candles that appear above that zone, but don't really follow through and go anywhere. Okay. If we look at this green vector candle zone right here, you can see it doesn't really gain much ground from the last time it made a move up. It actually moved 17 pips up. Okay. That's not that much of a ground to gain. All of this move right here was only recovering this wick right here. So when we look at it, you can see that the actual move was not that great, even though there was lots of candlesticks up here suggesting that price was going to continue even higher. But the stopping volume candle came in, which is this little blue candlestick right there, suggesting that the market maker was trying to halt price because he was getting ready to roll over. All right. And this is where I opened my shorts. I opened my shorts, about 5-6 shorts in that zone right there. And now Euro has taken the absolute nosebleed to the downside. We caught a great short, but funnily enough, they're recovering the vector candles in each zone. As you can see, I've got one more zone for them to recover. They did actually recover this vector candle region. They come into that vector zone right there. As you can see, they tapped it. That's the top side of the wick. They gave a little bit more right down there, and we've got another vector candle region that they could take, but I'm going to be closing this position just before the market closes later on tonight because Forex doesn't operate at the weekend. Okay? Now, these are the sort of plays that I discuss in the Patreon of the channel if you want to learn more about it and probably take your trading to a different level or a different perspective of thought. You can see that on here, I'm using an M formation, but I'm also using a pattern that you guys are familiar with the head and shoulders, okay? It's a variation of, it's just got a different meaning to what it, for it to be based on structure alone over a sample size of trades, you're going to see losses from that, all right? But when you understand what's going on inside of the head and shoulders, when you take into consideration the whole and half numbers and understand how Mr. Market Maker is building positions above that zone, so he's not really gaining ground, you're then more inclined to make an awareness in your mind to say, you know what, maybe this could be the point that it rolls over because we've had an extended move to the upside, as you can see right here. It's been shooting up with no retraces. Coupled with what we said yesterday about the dominance of the dollar, you can see that dollar dominance, man. We were waiting for this to happen. And for 2 days, I kept you guys in awareness that they have come back down into the same area where net dollar longs were triggered. If we go into the 1 hour time frame, remember what we said about these blue vector candles down at the lows right here? It's the same blue vector candles that appeared at the same time when they came over here. So we were coming into a very important area of support with the dollar dominance. Now it looks like the W formation is starting to play out, or the bigger W is starting to play out. But when you go into smaller time frames, you'll see that there is also what? The conventional inverted head and shoulders. There you go. 1, 2, 3, which is what? A variation on a W formation. Right there. Going into the smaller time frames, you'll see the W formation right there. Happy days. Look at that. Perfect. Going back into Bitcoin, as we attend the weekend, we can see that Bitcoin does have another zone right here that, in essence, needs to be finalized and recovered to help us understand the next move that Bitcoin might take. If we go over to Ethereum, you can see Ethereum's already recovered that zone with the prospect of them potentially coming down and recovering more of this wick right here. And then, of course, taking back the wick at this zone, which sits at the 1720. If we zoom out, look on the 8 hour time frame, you can see that Ethereum does have a nice violet vector candle with a wick down below. And at the same time, Bitcoin doesn't really have that. But Bitcoin has got an extended move up, and the nearest vector candle is at the 23 zone. Now, what you'd need to see Bitcoin doing is coming back into the 50 EMA. Do you remember what we said about Bitcoin on the daily time frame? Needing to see the test of the 50 EMA. That test didn't come in. It led traders to the downside, but then they instantly brought it back up on that weekend that the Silicon Valley Bank was going to receive a bailout. Okay? We are now in exactly the same point. We want to now see if the 800 EMA on the daily time frame is going to prove its worth. That's what we're looking for with Bitcoin. The weekend, it might be a little bit quiet. Why? Because on Saturday at 9 p.m. GMT, the new week starts. That takes us to 2 days and 8 hours roughly for the start of a new crypto trading week. Be very careful. The weekly candle for crypto right now has got a big green vector that hasn't been recovered just yet. This is where we are right now in the weekly, as you can see right here. Let me just move that. Happy days. Can't get above the cloud of the 50 EMA, and this is something that I encourage all the patrons of the channel to be mindful of. Unless there's a clean break above this cloud, do not be favoring longs until it can get above that area, come back and retest it. That's all you're looking for. You're looking for the break, the retrace back into it, continuation to the upside. If Bitcoin can sustain that and manage that success, look left, and you'd only be trading into that beautiful red vector candle right there on the 34,000 zone. Until then, it needs to get out of this area. Okay? So just be mindful of that when you are considering Bitcoin. Moving on from that, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank you for showing mad love throughout the week, attending the lives, watching the videos. I know we go over some mad topics, but see what you can do. Try and take some of the information and put it to practice. Have a look at all the contracts that are being obtained by these aerospace companies and defense companies. Try and investigate what's going on inside of these companies. Have a look at the Hindenburg research scenario, where they are actively trying to short stocks that are not doing things correctly and potentially executing fraudulent activities. Keep an eye out on that. Because the Adani stocks, they didn't just drop 50% in one instance. It's taken a little while for that to happen. Over a month, some of the stocks in that Adani group fell 50%, 60%, 20%. You now got Jack Dorsey's company, Block, that's also continuously dropping down. When you're investing, the best thing for you to do is to think of it like a consumer, but also like the business itself. So, Raytheon Technologies has just won the $234 million contract. Happy days. You know that that company is going to be receiving a revenue of $234 million over a period of time. That means they've got cash. That means they can complete this product. That means there's an end result. They've got the cash now. That's going to look good on their dividends. So in the longer term, aerospace and defense stocks might actually be beneficial for you given the current climates that we're in. But that's the way it is, ladies and gentlemen, when you're investing in these companies. There might be some ethical aspect to it, but this is it. You can't have emotions in trading. You can't have emotions in investments. I ain't even going to get talking about the pharma companies, but that's another story. If you are new to the channel and you've enjoyed today's flavor, mad love and respect, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, as we'll be tuning in again next week on Monday to bring you some more flavor. If you want to learn more about the hybrid, you want to take your trading to a different level of thinking, check out the Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and search for Traders Reality, and you'll be able to check out what's available over there. Mad love and respect, ladies and gentlemen. Take care of yourselves. Peace.